Hello again. This is John Hemlock talking to you today about the General Nazgrim fight. This was our first kill in flex rating mode. My role in this fight was the ad tank. So we had Makasang and Gilligai actually tanking the boss, and my role was to pick up and otherwise occupy the ads so they wouldn't go crazy on the raid. And right here at the start of the fight, I actually charge in and do all the damage I can do to the boss because in our previous attempt was sub 1%. I think he had something like 130,000 health left, and I didn't really take many opportunities in that attempt to do actual damage to the boss. So I'm making up for that here, and not doing a lot of damage to him, but I'm doing more than 130,000 DPS to him, or damage to him over the course of the little intro sequence. Then when the ads come, obviously my job is to pick them up, so that's what I'm doing here. We went around and around with this a little bit. I think where we'll eventually end up is probably, as long as we use 3 tanks, we will probably end up not worrying about the casters and just having the tanks pick up the iron blades. The problem that we have with the iron blades is they do this blade storm that you can see this guy doing, and it makes it really, really hard for the melee to do any damage to them. So if I have aggro on all of the mobs and take an iron blade on top of the casters, the shaman and the arc masters or whatever they're called, then basically melee can't damage them, and so that's a bad thing. Here during the first few waves, there's only 2 ads each time, so go ahead and feel free to just pick them up because we're only going to have ranged DPS on them. In the future, if we have enough ranged DPS to never have to put melee on the ads, then you'll want to do what I'm doing here, which is just kind of picking everything up. But anytime we have melee on the ads, basically I think what it's going to come down to is you're only going to tank the iron blades, and it makes it not that exciting of a fight. And you can see here, this is 9 minutes and 50 seconds of not a lot going on. These guys don't hit very hard. I use mitigation basically just to make sure I don't cap my rage bar. There's really nothing frightening about them at all, and so all I do when there's iron blades up is try to keep them out of the raid. And there's going to be, another 6.5 minutes of that. And obviously the big key to killing this boss is to not letting him have too much rage. When he has too much rage, he casts the abilities that we don't want. He casts the War Banner, he casts the War Song, he casts the Ravager. We don't want any of that. So we're trying to not let him have any rage. So it is important to get out of that fiery line you just saw there on the ground, which comes from his Heroic Leap type ability. As a off tank, you're gonna want to make sure you don't stand in that to make things any harder for anybody else. And just as a note, if you're in one of the other 2 tanking positions, as long as we're 3 taking this, which we probably will into the near future, basically you're just trading the boss on 3 stacks of Sunder. It's not particularly exciting from that viewpoint either. You probably get a little something better to look at than what I'm looking at here, but you're mainly trading on 3 stacks and that's it. And it's a little bit scary in that he stacks it just almost as quickly as the debuff wears off. So if you get both your tanks with 3 stacks, as soon as it wears off, if you taunt, you're fine, and you're going to stay at 3 stacks. The problem is if he gets somebody to 4, and the other guy's at 3, and he misses a taunt, well then the other guy's going to go to 4, and then the problem ends up stacking up because, like I say, it falls off almost as quickly as he stacks it. So if both tanks get 4 stacks, you're going to be hard pressed to ever get either tank below 4 stacks, which is a bad thing. So if you're on the boss, timely taunts are very important. Not having accidental swaps, which is easy because the boss hits pretty hard, and so the guy that's actively tanking is going to have big stacks of vengeance up. accidental swaps are very easy to happen. So we want to definitely avoid that. And at times, and just talking to Gilly, and from my experience taking it the other night, it's very threat sensitive with the tanks. And so you may have to, when your co-tank taunts him, you may well have to stop even auto attacking, just to make sure that you don't accidentally let that debuff stack up, which gives him more rage, which means he does his scarier abilities, and which makes it mean it's harder for you to get back down to the 3 stacks that you want to be at when you swap. So here we're at about the 4th wave of adds. I get a little initial aggro on one of the casters, but after that, it's just picking these iron blades up. And again, they don't hit hard at all. I mean, I'm rage capped here a lot, and kind of, it's really terribly boring, to be honest with you. But it's important. It's letting these guys run rampant through the raid. They really hurt non-tank-like objects, so keeping the iron blades out of the raid is pretty much the order of the day when it comes to what the off tank, which is my role, is doing here. And we'll see a group of 3 adds come up here, and I'll get a little initial aggro on a shaman, and then I pick up this iron blade, because I know that we've got melee DPS going in to help out with the adds. So it's a catch-22. If I try to take the add or the caster, I can get some interrupts on him. I can get a little more DPS on him, but in return, he's going to kill our guys. So that's kind of why we stopped doing that. And this is basically, I think I mentioned it before, I think the way this is going to end up happening is the guy tanking the adds is almost exclusively just going to worry about tanking these iron blades and keeping them out of the raid. And it's boring kind of, because we went to 3 tanks. But if you only went to 2 tanks, it'd be really hard, because one thing you'll see is some of these iron blades stay up a really long time. The raid is focusing on the casters, and then the raid is focusing on the boss. So the iron blades have a tendency to live a really long time. And if we were only 2 tanking this and had to actually swap on the boss, we'd have a lot of issues that using 3 tanks just completely negates kind of the mechanic of that happening, because the tanks can swap without ever having to worry of bringing an iron blade in on top of where the DPS are trying to kill a boss. So this is more of me ignoring my more primal urges to go tank all the things. This was kind of bad luck a little bit. We pushed this guy over 10% just as another wave pops. So we kind of ended up with 2 waves of adds. And so I've got this iron blade here, but there's another one in the raid, and I keep trying to taunt him, and he's very slowly making his way to me, but incidental AoE keeps taking aggro. So all I'm trying to do is keep the guy I've got and get that second guy out of the raid. Eventually, he finally does get to me. It took a long time. I'm not sure I could have done anything different there. Yeah, it was kind of a bad deal. It was really, really bad timing. But part of the reason was that our DPS was pretty good on this last attempt, and we burned down the adds in pretty short order, so that, you know, when the guy got to 10%, he got to 10%, and we had 2 sets of adds pop almost simultaneously. And then again here, there are no adds up. I know that the last attempt, we got him to within, you know, a couple 100,000 points of dead, so I'll run in here and do a little more damage to him if I can. Not a particularly interesting fight, kind of, from this point of view. It's a little bit boring, and it doesn't really show most of what's going on. I hope Rowan and Lucette got some better videos that show a little more than taking one guy away from where everybody's